transportation facilities. This includes roads, bridges, parking lots, sidewalks, and ramps people use to move around. So if you want to be part of that conversation, Tuesday, Cowlitz, March 5th, 2024, Cowlitz Expo Center, 6 to 8 p.m. You can go in person or you can do online. We'll put that out, what you do online, but that is available. Okay. Huh?
What day is that?
Tuesday, March 5th, 2024, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Expo Center. Next Tuesday. So you have an opportunity to have your input in that. Okay. Any other public comments for the day?
Is that it? We're done after that? 'Cause-
Yep.
All right, well, let me keep you guys here for a little longer.
Mr. Chairman, could you start the timer? I think half a minute's about right.
That's all right. But I'll say something and then you guys will have to talk about it a lot more. So, Board of Health is in here, you know, and this just brings into my mind, so who owns the building that they work out of? You know, the health building. I mean, is that a county property?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's county property.
So we own that. And then, we also, pay for all the operations, heat, water, all the utilities, that kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah.
That's true.
And so they got $1 million sitting there, but we gotta get tasked with, paying for that door, $30,000, right? For their roll-up door at the front of the building.
We've been struggling with an overall facility plan since certainly before I came on board. And there's a lot of inertia, a lot of complexity. It's
There
one of
always
those things
is.
you just do because you know you have to, but
Well, it
nobody
makes
wants.
it easy to complain that way, Aaron. You know,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
You know, you got so many little things going out there. I can gripe about almost any one of them.
We did an extensive facilities study. I think it was before you
Before
joined
me,
us, so
yeah.
it's been a long time now.
Yeah.
It was called the Ming study and analyzed all the buildings. Said basically the Hall of Justice has good bones. It's just
Who
some,
said that?
well, it has good bones. I mean, it is a solid building, but there are some design features that make it unworkable.
I'd like to meet the guy that said
But,
that.
but the main point I was trying to make is that their recommendation is that we need to spend at a minimum of $5 million a year on maintenance and upkeep.
Yeah.
And we hadn't been doing that hardly at all
Well,
because we go through a recession and our discretionary income begins to disappear.
sure.
And it was that, I mean, that recession started in 2008. They cut off a lot of workers and they stopped doing maintenance. And that recession lasted until 2014.
Yeah.
And, you know, the buildings are falling apart. We don't spend $5 million a year, but what we did do is to monetize the landfill, and we're getting the money and the cash. And we've climbed back up with doing the things that should have been done a long time ago. The security part with entrances to that provide sanctuaries for homeless people, that continues to be a problem. That ends up being a design. And I was over at the museum yesterday. And to go in the back entrance, you have to step over drug paraphernalia that are left behind because it's kind of a little cove they
Yep.
can hide around. So we talked about needing to just build a new door and get rid of that location. Those things are ongoing. So that was the reason why there's a new pull down door, because they were sleeping in that entrance as well.
I know they were. You know, back in COVID days, we used to go protest over there and we'd show up before they opened and there'd always be a few homeless people in that doorway. And then they'd come out, chase them off. There's always a pile of garbage there. And so, you know, when you talk about that kind of money expenditures where, you know, we've got this problem over here, so we're going to do something like this, like the door, and it's because of the homeless people, you know, if we didn't have the homeless people, wouldn't need the door, right? I mean, if law enforcement would go by there and say, hey, you can't sleep there, kick them out, that kind of thing. At any rate, we end up in these situations. But an interest, you touched on the Hall of Justice over there. And whether it has good bones or not, the design of that building is not right. And, we're aware of the problems there of there's a lot of space in that building that's just not able to be utilized. And, I'm the whole upstairs being the jail. So it's like, really, honestly, you could tear that building down and put up something a quarter of the size to house the courtrooms, and the sheriffs could have their own department somewhere,
But Tim,
Uh,
therein is one of the challenges we face. You're wearing a T-shirt that says we can't do that
That's right.
because that's theft. So
That's
you have
right.
to spend an awful lot of money to replace a building that at a minimum gets us by okay. It's not the best design.
Yeah.
And it's got heating problems and the electrical service and the internet you're right. It was a bad design from the very beginning. Arn, you looked into that as well. What did you kind of come up with as a grand total if you replaced it functionally with a new building?
Yeah, what would that?
Well, there's a little story there. When I first came on board, I started, that became obvious. I looked at the Meng report and there are lots of tendrils, but to make it clear, I used the numbers you just heard, and we could have moved all of us to the mall. And with the cost of the move and all that, I figured our return on investment, or I should say the time to amortize the additional expense and get ourselves with a good building, something to be happy with, would be on the order of 2 years. Whenever you can invest anything and get paid back in 2 years, it's like, and it's because we don't spend not even a small fraction of 5 million a year. The big issue expense, I think, is what you were looking for is we need a courthouse.
Yeah.
And the courthouse, let's see, the last one I think I saw was built up north, maybe Snohomish or somewhere around there for 220 million or something like that.
That sounds kind of high to me, but
Well,
Yeah.
but you see, we don't just build something, we build palaces, but we don't maintain them. And
Well,
they're,
sometimes they're not even palaces. Hall of Justice is not a palace.
right,
well,
well,
at the time,
Thought it was,
they,
but-
they
At the
really
time, yeah.
treat it like a palace.
and
All it lacks is a spire.
and I think I mentioned, you might have not been at that meeting where in all this time, I've been trying to get the Superior Court to give us a specification of what they consider a good, what a courtroom should be like. And I have not been successful in getting that. They want to pay $80,000 at the time for a consultant. And I'm saying, you're the one that uses the courtroom. You're
Yeah.
the one that complains about the courtroom. Why don't you tell me what your complaints are? Why don't you lay it out the way you think it is, and amongst yourselves, figure that out? Nothing. There's also there are courthouses all across the nation. Find the blueprints for the courthouse you like.
Well, maybe the planning commission should look into that one.
That'd
Anyway.
only be if we decide to build a courthouse in a single family neighborhood.
Yeah. So,
And
Anyway.
then one very hidden thing is, if you can get somebody to build it for you, then you save a lot of money. There's a classic story of the firehouse in Cathlamet. Have you heard that story?
no,
So prior to that new firehouse, the fire chief from before, when he retired, he gave the city the land and $2 million to build themselves a firehouse.
wow.
They refused it because they couldn't do it for the money. So he built the firehouse, he knew what a firehouse ought to be. He built it on the land he gave them, and then he gave it over to them.
Hmm.
And all of that is because we got these stupid rules that are not unlike these stupid rules here.
Yeah,
And so you got to figure out how to avoid them. So we own these buildings here. If we were to have gone to the mall, we would have probably worked a contract out where the mall owners build us something on their property. And then we lease it back for 25 years or more, however it is. But they take care of a whole bunch of external maintenance and we do our internal maintenance.
yeah, sure enough. That's the thing about it is, and that's what I'm saying about that building is, there's just a lot of wasted space over there. And for what they have, which I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, 3 or 4 courtrooms? Is that what they have there? That's
Well,
6.
they're,
6 courtrooms.
they're,
I guess I haven't been in enough trouble. I haven't been to all of them yet.
they're not all alike. And they also, you can go there. I used to walk through there pretty frequently to understand the problem. Courtrooms are very often empty.
Yeah,
And that led to another discussion where they claim they have no choice because people, when they know they have a court date, all of a sudden they settle out of court. It's no different than the airlines. They have to overbook because people don't show up.
Yeah.
And they go broke otherwise. Well, they could do that here. And they say, well, look, you already have to accommodate the fact that you thought this was a 1-day trial and it ended up being 3 days. You already have the mechanisms to cope with all that.
yeah.
So take advantage of them. They got history so they can do the statistics properly in a significant way. That's too much, but we have to still hire for them additional court administrators. And I'm like, I don't think they are interested in a solution.
No end to the fun. Right?
Now you got me into trouble.
Well, yeah, but you know, the day's coming, that building's gotta go. And, it will be money ahead when that day comes.
I thought we could sell the building to McMenamins
Yeah,
and and they would say refurbish it for a hotel. You could spend a night in jail at McMenamins in Longview.
you could, but you know, one of the problems, and this is just something that popped in my head the other day, you know, you really can't put people on that 3rd floor over there, or the jail floor, is because there's no escape. All the windows are made so you can't get out, and there's just one in and out. They got a stairway and an elevator.
I got news for you. Their office is up there.
Well, they shouldn't be, right? I mean, that's a fire danger.
Well, that's true of every floor though.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm just saying, you just, you know, somebody used this term the other day or some meeting ago, sometime, but you gotta rip the Band-Aid off at some point, you know? And, like we were just talking about, taking money from the future generations, you know? The longer we sit on this problems, then that's the future generations that end up getting stuck with it. And
Well, the
You know.
fundamental problem is there are iniquities all over the place. Government, people think government can solve iniquities.
yeah,
They only tend to cause iniquities with good intention. So
it always starts with good intentions, always. Well, that's been fun day. Good to talk to you guys.
See you later. Ronald.
I have one thing for you under miscellaneous, and you can, looking for concurrence or give me some direction on it. I had told you I was gonna meet with juvenile George, cause we had talked about a couple different things over there that we send our juveniles out of town for. One is, when they're in drug rehabilitation or mental health. In the state of Washington, we have 4 facilities for drug use, none in Calhoun County. So I think the nearest one is up in Seattle. We have 1 mental health deal, and I think it's over in Eastern Washington somewhere. We actually even at times will send kids to Utah. So we're trying to look at ways we could utilize that building. So, I think we can use it for one of those two purposes. And my next step with George was to, what we discussed is sitting down with a small team with him, probably Judge Hahn, because she kind of represents the judges now, and who we thought might be, because I don't want it to be a county-run facility. If we're doing drug rehab, I'd rather have private enterprise run that thing. They just use our building, and we have a lease or whatever we do with the building. So that's the next step I was going to take, and my question to you is, are you okay following that direction? Because eventually it needs to end up in a workshop with some kind of proposal, or do you want to be more involved with it? You want to run it through these meetings? I can certainly bring those in and run it through these meetings, or
Are you
how do you
leaning,
want to do that?
are you leaning toward, mental health treatment or drug?
I
Prevention.
asked George that question. I said, if you had, in a perfect world, if you could choose, which one would you choose? And he felt there was a bigger need in our county for the drug rehab.
So then you'd need, what's the right agency to do that?
That's the thing, is we need to identify who does that. Because the last thing I want to do is I want it to support itself. I don't want them every year that Cowles County runs a budget to support this thing. I don't want to do that. And I think we
Other,
can,
other than the per patient fee that we
Right.
might end up paying anyway, but.
yeah, in a perfect world, we would get our kids taken care of here locally instead of shipping them out. And it would be run by an entity that should cover itself and should be self-sustaining. That would be in my perfect, that's my end goal.
So the person locally who does both sides of the behavioral health thing is Mark Bollinger with Integrated Healthcare. And he's the clinic that the BHO uses.
Yeah.
And the BHO is both mental health and substance abuse. But they have an office in town, and they have contracts with Medicaid providers. So they use the Medicaid dollars. Well, most of those
Yeah.
juvenile clients would be not 100%, but a lot of them are going to be qualified for that kind of funding source.
Yeah.
Um,
But, and I'd have no trouble, including those type of people in this conversation. I don't want to, as we talked about the health officer, I think the more, the better get perspective and find the right person, right fit. So I won't proceed on things if you guys are wanting to see it different or you don't like that direction. It needs to be a board decision, so everybody needs to be involved. Whether you're physically involved in every step, that's kind of up to you. More than happy to have that.
There's several implicit questions in what you're asking. The one, I think if you can come up with a straw man, I'd recommend that. Don't do it by committee. It'll take you way too long. Have something somebody can shoot at. It's a little bit like, would you go into a meeting and say, how long is a piece of string? Or would you go in and say, I think a piece of string ought to be 3 feet long? You get two different answers completely. And go ahead and try and work something and then hit us as you see fit. The other thing is, I know what we do isn't very useful for a variety of reasons. We have not a good working system. So in that case, only a fool would say, let's not do anything about it. Then the next question is, is what we would do going in the same direction of an alien system? Or is it a deviation of some kind? And I think you already know pretty much the details of what isn't working there. there's a synergism in life that says if you pay attention to details of being careful and responsible here, it sort of has this osmotic pressure on other things around you that clean it up also.
Yeah.
So, you just heard Steve Rader speak about a
And-
system, and at the risk of irritating myself and the two of you, we just gave someone another 2.5 million or another 2 million for something for which is just doing the same old stuff, when in fact, on a personal challenge with the individual in the past, I wanted something like that. Because that's what helps people. Anyhow, so yeah, there's plenty of room for change there.
Yeah,
Go for it.
okay.
But yeah, be careful about getting bogged down in a committee. Yeah.
Well, I know, and
Might have
it
a
would not be
conversation.
a big group. It may just start with myself, George and Judge Hahn is trying to figure out a direction.
I would suggest that you keep it there until you guys are all on the same
Yeah.
page enough to go forward.
And Arn, you know me long enough, I'm totally on board. I'm not looking at doing the same thing. It would
Right,
have to be something that proven results. If we're gonna help these kids, I need an end result that is positive, not just over
yeah,
and over
it
and
could,
over.
it could be world changing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
If we do it right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we're paying to have kids sent out now. And if we can do something within our county and maybe structure it in a way that we can actually see some results, then to me, it's a worthwhile path. Whether we get it completed, I don't know, but I think
Yeah.
it's a path to start.
You won't get anything done if you don't try. Uh, uh, Dennis mentioned Mark Bollinger, and I think both he and Trinidad Medina actually have a pretty good head on their shoulders. So at some point, when you need information, I think you can count on them to provide you a perspective. And that's not to say they should be on the committee. It should be one of the people you go ask.
Okay, I'll move forward. I just,
A little known, program that that Great Rivers did was they took a shuttered hospital and turned it into a treatment facility, but it's run privately. But it was, the BHO that got the funding to get it all back in working order.
yeah,
So it's up near McCleary, and I don't even know if that's an issue now on the board meetings. You know,
Doesn't really
it's run
come up.
very
Yeah.
well, so.
Yeah,
You know it's run very well when you don't hear anything about it, right?
yeah.
okay, moving forward. My goal is to never have you guys hear something that I'm working on and then question me about it. It
Oh, no,
should be that
I-
you know.
I really appreciate how you're going about it. That's kind of how we were doing yesterday about the LT1. It's like I measure the appetite
Yeah.
before asking them to do anything.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we will adjourn. Thank you.
One last comment. Did you know taxation is theft?
I read that somewhere. We will adjourn.
You say it, but I don't agree with it.
Yeah. No longer small money, right?